Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Sarah here with Furniture Flip by Sarah. Today's video, I'm going to be making over this cabinet here. So this cabinet originally was used for guns. It was a gun cabinet. It has the lock system and everything right here. So we did go ahead and add in some pine shelves. I will roll the footage of the before to kind of show you guys how the guns were stored in here. And then we switched that out. We added some nice pine shelving. I'm going to be painting all of the inside, so I'm not going to be staining these. And then I'm going to be working on the outside as well. I think I'm going to go ahead and paint this one black. But let's get into the video. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove these handles. I'm just going to see how they were secured on and just take those off quickly. So I'm just using a square screwdriver head to remove these. To sand down the drawer fronts, I'm going to go ahead and use my DeWalt orbital sander, and I have a 220 grit sandpaper on here. Okay, so I got the drawer front sanded down, and they sanded down super easy. The original finish came right off, and I love the finish that these are right now, but I'm thinking of maybe doing a paint wash to the drawers and then painting the rest of the cabinet. I'm really not too sure now that that sanded so well. I'm just kind of wondering what I should do for the rest of the piece now. Leave me a comment what you guys would do. Would you sand the rest of the piece down and do like a paint wash or a stain, or would you paint this cabinet? Okay, so there's a few nicks on this side that I'm just going to go ahead and wood fill with my Timbermate wood fill, if that's going to focus, and a spackle knife. After letting the wood fill sit for about 3 hours, I put on my gloves, grabbed my Surf Prep sander with a 220 grit, and sanded out all the wood fill I added, making sure everything was super smooth. Once I was done sanding, I went ahead and removed the original little legs on this piece. They were just little pieces of pine nailed in, so I just grabbed a hammer, nailed down all the extra nails so I didn't cut myself. I grabbed this little edger tool and just kind of hammered it in to the wood, loosening it up. That way I could just kind of pry it out, and I repeated this process for all the 4 legs. I went ahead and cleaned this piece with some TSV. It's just a degreaser. I buy the powder and dilute it with water, and I find it works really well in this spray bottle. You can see this piece was super dirty, covered in dust. So now that it's all clean, I'm gonna go ahead and use my frog tape here. Don't cheap out when it comes to painter's tape. Trust me, this stuff goes a long way, and your finish will be a lot smoother. So I'm going to go ahead and tape off all the glass and the shelves inside, and then get priming this piece. To tape off the little glass pieces for this cabinet, I just went ahead and made sure to tape all the corners and edges and the front and back of this piece. That way, when I am done painting, I have less cleanup. Cleaning glass I find is super annoying, so I always take the extra step to prep the piece to avoid getting any paint on the glass. Okay, so I ended up taping the doors, the front and the back, and then I also did the shelf here and added some plastic because I think I'm going to do a paint wash to match the bottom drawers. But now that everything's painted, I'm going to go ahead and start priming. So to prime this piece, I am going to be using a shellac-based primer. This one is by Zinsser. They're been shellac based. I love this stuff, especially for covering up all the knots on this pine. It's gonna work perfectly. I might need to do a couple coats if it's yellowing. I do have one here that I've been using. You can see there's primer all over it, but I'm gonna go ahead and use that. I have a primer brush here just from the dollar store, and I will also use a roller. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the corners. I'm going to brush all of the corners and then go ahead and roll the flat surfaces. And you could throw your brush away when you're done using this because this primer is really hard to clean off. But what I've been doing is just sticking my brush wrapped up or my roller in the fridge, and it's been keeping it like wet, I guess, and I'm able to use it again. Inside where I can with a brush. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll it, and then I will also use a brush to get in all the little nooks on the door. A question I get asked quite a bit is, do I need to prime? Is it necessary? Is it going to benefit me in the long run? And the answer is always yes. I always recommend using a shellac-based primer because it's going to block anything that's like in the wood that wants to come up. If you used any heavy cleaners, anything that's soaked into the wood is going to show through. If it doesn't show through right away, over time, that will leak through your paint finish. So blocking it from the beginning, taking that time to prime it properly is super, super important. I cannot stress that enough. Once I completely primed this piece with 2 coats of primer, I then went ahead and just did a quick scuff sand and then a clean again to make sure when I apply my paint, the surface is nice and smooth. To paint this cabinet, I ended up picking a color I've never used before. I went with Benjamin Moore in their advanced line of paint, and I picked the color Alexandria Beige. I went with their pearl finish. This is by far my favorite finish. It's perfect because it's not matte, but it's not super glossy. It's the perfect in-between. I find it very similar to like a satin finish, and I went ahead and painted the whole outside in this color. To apply my paint, I am using a Purdy brush. This is my first time using it, and after painting this cabinet, I can honestly say their brushes are amazing. The paint goes on super smooth and giving you a nice flat, even finish. I also used a microfiber roller. The brand doesn't really matter. As long as it's microfiber, you're going to get a nice, super smooth and flat finish. And with this paint, it is super self-leveling. So don't be worried when you do your first coat of paint. It might look a little bit bumpy. It takes 16 hours to dry. And after those 16 hours, you can really see it leveled out completely. I am not sponsored in any way by these Purdy brushes or the Benjamin Moore Advanced line of paint, but it is definitely right now my favorite paint to use, and these are definitely my favorite brushes. Nice bleached wood, kind of washed wood effect. I'm going to be using Fusion Mineral Paint in Goodness Ashwagandha with 2 just Dollarama brushes, cheap brushes, a glove, and an old sock. So first I went ahead and watered down this piece. I just took one of my brushes with some regular water and just brushed it on all over this piece. Then I went ahead and took my paint and just brushed a coat of paint all over this piece and then wiped it back with my sock, allowing just a little bit of this paint to kind of soak into the wood and give me that nice beach kind of coastal vibe that I'm going for. I repeated this process for all 3 of the drawers, and then I'm going to be adding a satin top coat, but I will get to that later in the video. For the inside of this cabinet, I'm going to go ahead and use my Benjamin Moore paint in Chantilly. I'm going to be using Chantilly lace? How do you say it? Chantilly lace. Chantilly? I'm going to be using Chantilly lace. As you can see here, I was struggling with how to pronounce this, but it's Chantilly lace by Benjamin Moore in their advanced line, and I'm using the semi-gloss finish. In this clip here, I'm just pouring it into a smaller container so it's easier to work with while I'm painting the inside. I started with painting the corners and getting into all the little nooks and cracks of this piece, and then I went ahead and used my microfiber roller to roll out the rest. I decided to end up painting the backs of the doors in the Alexandria beige color because I realized if I were to paint them white, the paint would come through on the hinges there and you would see that. So it just made more sense to have a nice seamless finish to paint the doors in the same beige color. Then it was time to top coat the door fronts. I let them dry for about 2 hours and then went ahead and used my polyurethane. This is my favorite polyurethane by far, and it is in a satin finish, and I just applied this with a sponge brush all over this, and I ended up doing 2 to 3 coats on each drawer. For the inside of these shelves, I decided to use the Alexandria beige color and water it down the same technique I did for the drawer fronts in order to get that kind of wood look. I still wanted to see some of this pine, but I did want it to be cohesive to the piece and work with the scheme, so I did it in the same beige color. Okay, so I am out in the garage now and I'm getting ready to spray paint these legs that I had actually welded custom for our brand, our business. They are going to be on our website and they are locally made in Canada. I'll show you guys kind of up close. Can see that these are the smaller size that I'm using today. I do have another video where I'm using the larger legs. If you want to check that video out, I will link it down below. So I'm just going to get ready and I'm going to spray paint the bottoms, so the backs underneath first. And I'm going to be using my Rust-Oleum. This is a flat black. You guys can see that. I'm going to be using this one here and I'll probably need to do 2 coats and then I will go over with a poly top coat. The key to achieve a smooth, even finish when spray painting is to make sure you are spraying thin, even coats. If you have to take breaks and only spray small areas at a time, that is okay because you don't want to get any drips when you're spray painting. It is very easy to get drip marks if you spray too much in one area, so just make sure you're spacing out when you're spraying it and making sure it's nice and even. To top coat these legs and make sure they're really durable and going to hold up, I ended up using the same polyurethane I did for the drawers. I'm just using a smaller sponge brush. You can usually pick these up in variety packs. They come in different sizes for about $15, and I picked mine up at my local Home Hardware, but I'm sure any home hardware store or depot store would have these. So I'm going to go ahead and install these legs. I finished painting them and top coating them. So I have just kind of laid them out here. I'm gonna get a measuring tape and make sure they're centered. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just screw them in to those little 4 spots there, and then repeat it on the other side. So now that all the legs are on, I'm gonna go ahead and flip this piece over and then start putting on my hardware. So for this piece, I ordered new hardware. What I did was I measured the center of each hole, so the distance between each original screw hole, and then I just went on Amazon, typed in what it was. I think it was like 3 inches and let's say 1/4. Ordered the handles for that size. They came in about a week, and then I just put the new ones on, and it completely transformed this piece. New hardware can make or break a piece, picking the right hardware, but sometimes keeping the original outdated hardware really distracts from the beauty of what you're doing to the piece. So I recommend, if you can, I would switch out the hardware for something more modern, or at least spray it to match the design of your piece. Here is the final look of the cabinet. I really love how the wood tones play with the white inside. I love the drawer colors, the shelf colors, all of it I think really gives this nice earthy kind of tone to it. It's a super versatile piece because it can really go with any decor or color scheme. Let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it was a little bit long, but I wanted to show you everything that went into this transformation, from the hardware to prepping the piece to the new legs. And if you are interested, those legs will be available on our website, so I will leave that link down below. But don't forget to subscribe and like today's video. I will see you guys next time with another furniture flipping video.